Lightroom gives us a number of ways to become creative, but there's one other in the Develop module, and we're in the Develop module at the moment, and what we want is the Effects tab. We have two options in here. We have a vignette and we have grain. Now this image was shot with an infrared camera. In the days when I used to shoot infrared film, as a byproduct of using infrared film, we used to get quite a bit of grain in the shot, and to be honest, at times it used to add something to them. So I thought this may make a good subject to test out the grain. But let's start first with the vignetting. You may notice that all of these sliders are greyed out and I cannot move them. Until I actually touch the top one and start to move it, do they all start to come to life. If I move the feather down to the left, you can see the shape that's being made on the screen. So if I move the amount slider to the left, we get a dark vignette. To the right, we get a light vignette. And this is a good indicator of what the feather does, because we do use the feather in many different forms in our digital photography. If we look at the midpoint, I always think of this as like a zoom, because that's what it seems to do. There's the full extent of the left movement and a full extent of the right, but of course if we had the feather up, we would still be getting quite a bit of an encroachment in the edges of the image, or the corners of the image up there. And finally we've got the roundness. If we move to the right, that's exactly what happens, and there we can see the roundness. But if I move the other way, I get a sort of a round edged oblong. So we've got quite a bit of control within the post-crop vignetting. And don't forget, with these options, I've mentioned this a number of times, if you want to go a short distance, place the cursor flashing in one of those boxes. You can then go to the up and down arrows on the keyboard and you can use those to make changes, and there you can see I'm expanding the size. So if I was looking to get something very thin around the edge, then sometimes that's a more appropriate way of doing it. But let's put a little bit more feather on as well and move down to the grain. I think the grain is sort of self-explanatory. We can increase the size of the image if we want to 1:1, but I think it may be nicer to look at it as it is. So what I'll do is I'll step the grain up quite a lot. And can we see it? Well, perhaps not. Perhaps I was right the first time. Let's go in and take a look at it in more detail. So if I take the grain off, there you can see the picture before. If I come up about midway, nice little bit of delicate grain up to the maximum we can apply. But we can also affect the size of the grain, so it can be extremely small or very big and clumpy. If we were trying to simulate an old photo, perhaps that's the way to go. A little bit of sepia tone, and I think we'd probably have that sorted. Double click and they'll snap back. And of course, I should have left that up, because the next one is the roughness, and there you can see the difference we have there. A little bit more uniform there, but that's a little more rough. So again, all personal choice this. I don't think there's anything but personal choice in the options we've just demonstrated.